Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. First, I would like to begin with the land acknowledgement. We Canadians acknowledge that the Indigenous people are the traditional guardians of this land that we call Canada. We have a duty to admit their relationship to the land upon which we live and work, and to prioritize initiatives that support the reconciliation with them and their communities. We would like to honor all the ancestral stewards of this land on which we meet today and their descendants living in over 1,000 different tribes, nations, bands, communities, or native villages. The people who speak almost as many different languages as there are tribes are the contemporary custodians of this land. We also would like to acknowledge the contemporary tribal leaders and other tribe members. Hello, my name is Zakia Suleiman. It's my pleasure to have you all with us today. I will be your moderator for this webinar. I'm speaking on behalf of ICNA Sisters Canada, which is a faith-based, nonprofit, all-women organization that has been serving Canada since 1970s. We ICNA Sisters have chapters in 28 different cities of Canada. We offer many services, including social services, outreach facilities, civic engagement resources, and we hold classes for ladies, youth, and children. The main vision of ICNA Sisters Canada is to provide a positive image of the Muslim women as an interactive, empowered entity doing her part in helping to better the Canadian society. ICNA, which stands for the Islamic Circle of North America, is a women organization that is holding this webinar. The Truth and Reconciliation Week, which started on 28 September, is not only a time to reflect on our shared history, but also to look towards the future with hope and determination. On September 30th, we remember the ongoing effects of residential schools on Indigenous lives and their communities, and the many young lives lost, the brave survivors and their families. The reason behind holding this webinar today is to understand the legacy and the continued impact of the residential schools on survivors, the Indigenous families, the community and their communities. This lies at the heart of truth and reconciliation. We are holding this today, and we are gathered here today to encourage all Canadians to be committed to learn and understand First Nation shared history with Canada. Together, we can pave the way for a more just, equitable, and compassionate Canada for all. So let's begin. So first of all, I would like to invite Larry Oakes. Larry Oakes is an elder who belongs to the Neckaneet First Nation. He is from the Cree tribe in southern Saskatchewan. He is fortunate enough that he is able to speak the Cree language. He was fortunate also not to attend the residential school. He grew up in a town of Maple Creek, Saskatchewan. He has worked in the area of construction, and he's also worked for the government organization in the correction, parole, and health areas. He also has been a community leader, and he has 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Welcome, Larry, and please take hold of the mic and tell us your experiences. So I give the mic to Larry. Larry, please come forward.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. I didn't attend residential school myself. growing up in a household that in a community. I grew up in the town of Maple Creek, but I certainly was aware of it, and I thought it was a nice place to be and try to attend because they had a lot of sports. The kids that did go there, and then I didn't know of the other stuff that was going on, and I did try to go. I asked my parents, but they decided not to send me. Um, so I guess looking back now, definitely thankful. Uh, I can't ever speak about experiences or anything that wouldn't be proper of me to do that. Like I said, I didn't attend, and that would be disrespectful to the people that did attend. But the areas that I've worked in, I guess the people that you work with or I work with sometime did attend. They're intergenerational survivors. Their grandparents went, their parents went, they went. And some of the issues that they deal with. I would like to talk about what can we do about that, the legacy of the residential school, the negative legacy. Um, when the grandparents, I guess, or even furthermore, the time period was essentially they did start immersing themselves in alcohol consumption and not knowing the effects of controlling that in any way. The misery and the hurt that they've experienced at these places, nobody knew anything about them. Nobody even talked about it, whether they were allowed or not. They somewhere they were. I guess they convinced themselves that it was something that they kept to themselves, or in their own ways, they normalized it. I heard of some survivors saying that we thought it was a normal thing, that there was nothing out of order. But they realized after a while that wasn't right, that wasn't proper. And but now, like with the survivors, the ones that did attend, and the children of the survivors, you have to remember the big scope of it. That's over the first one, Eastern Canada, that's over 160 years ago. And they say there's been 150,000 children that did attend over a century and a half. So that's a lot of people. And you're not even accounting any of the compound effect of the families, the intergenerational numbers that grew on a compound basis that were affected by residential schools. What do we do about it? They did lose their culture. They didn't have access to it. And what I'll say of culture is that in a cultural household, you essentially have somebody, a parent, a household leader, organizing the family to attend or to host ceremonies. And if that's not going on around you, you're not going to know. You're not going to attend. So this happened over multi generations. So I commend the organization that we're visiting today, and being able to speak your language. And but somewhere along the way, me being from the Cree tribe, there are a lot of brothers and sisters that don't speak it. A lot of it becomes from because of the residential school, and a lot of it is because assimilation. And probably there's really no financial value to learn the Cree language as far as providing a living because you speak Cree. Those kind of factors. So how do we re-offer traditional practices to our people that are becoming aware of it and want to be part of that way of life? Everybody that is a traditional person and that attends ceremonies on a regular basis, they have their network or circle of people, and there's always the people that are just starting to get introduced to this way. But there are a lot more that are completely missed out, and this is where we end up meeting with them sometimes is in the correction system, where they haven't been able to really function as properly as they could in society. And now they're being punished, they're being incarcerated. But now traditional type of teaching programs are being offered to them, and this is the big question. Let's not wait. That's good that they're doing that. But how can we offer this to a broader population at an earlier time and in their age brackets? I look at the educational system. You look at the foster care system to provide that type of accessibility where there's ceremonies going on around them, whether they're part of an organization or they're in a community. You're going to need people that know how to do these ceremonies. You're going to need that network of people that help the ceremonial leads, I'll say. So it isn't just one elder that does a lot of this stuff. He has people that he's worked with for a number of years, and they do this kind of work. And but organizations, that have a population base of Aboriginal people, it comes down to actually hopefully getting the permission from the Aboriginal people to actually hire people like that. They'll still do their work for their family and their community, but they'll bring those type of teachings into the organization and deliver those type of, if need be, ceremonies for the organizational patient population, I'll say. And I don't know if Aboriginal people are ready to do that. In my experience, I guess we have certainly done that through organizations where the organization provides tobacco, basically an invitation or a request that we do and ask an elder, what do we do in this situation? And that's what they generally do, is they'll lead us through a ceremony. So essentially the organization is being advised and coached on how to contribute to whatever ceremony that elder is offering to share to the population. And then to continuously offer that has been the challenge. You have to have people throughout the organization, the financial people, the managers, the operational people, the front end staff that actually support this kind of stuff. And if there's financial resources that are needed, yeah, you have to pretty well secure those. Because like I said, the big numbers there are the many generations of specific families and communities that were separated from this. And now they want to go back to it. So I think we as First Nations people, we have to speak loud like that. That, let's ask for the government's help to hire people to do this, deliver on a continuous basis, for years, because what you're up against is that 100 plus or 150, 60 years of residential schools that were designed to take the Indian out of the child, as they say, and remove them from their culture and their language. So I don't think we should try to hesitate too much, to kind of do it quietly. We're going to have to do it and to have ceremonies that are provided for that person until they become part of that and actually contributing with their effort, their contribution. They eventually start getting responsibilities. And that's the big key, is having organizations be part of this. And kids coming into the system, they're learning about programming, they're learning about life skills, even the education system. They're learning about, the 3 R's, I'll say, and whatnot. And but they'll also be learning culture And it's a full-time thing, not to be afraid to say, let's do this for 10 or 20 years and see where we get from there. What it's going to do is it's going to have the effect where people tell each other, and it's going to grow. And but then you're going to run into a financial problem again, because this is a continuous type of thing. If somebody takes therapy or counseling, they do that a number of years, and there's a cost to it. It's continuous because you're reaching different levels of healing, I'll say, and that also works on the traditional healing side. As you start becoming a different person, you start becoming who you're supposed to be, but you also see your environment around you, your family, your community, your friends, your coworkers, that there's things that you can do together. So there's always a continuous need of traditional advice that needs to be available. And communities have that. Strong traditional communities have that. But a lot of the people that are brothers and sisters, First Nation brothers and sisters out there, they haven't lived in these communities for 4 or 5 generations, and so maybe something needs to be set up in the city on a continuous basis. And it's not just based on a model system where you have one nice facility that does great work. I think we have to go in there and say, okay, how many people numbers wise is this facility serving and helping in a good way? And then match that up with the people that don't have this type of traditional help available to them, and start building more places that deliver that kind of service that can meet the needs of the actual population numbers. Now you're talking big numbers financially. And that's what I mean. Let's not hesitate, because that 150-year residential school program, there was money tied to that. So we come along and say, okay, we want to do something on a cultural basis that's going to affect the whole population. Okay, you're going to need to, invest some real dollars in order that we can bring the people that provide this kind of work. And the main thing is the children, right? You want them to grow up and experience that right away. It's an investment into the well-being of a population of people that have been attacked by the government, I guess, because they spoke their language, they had their own culture, they had their own spirituality. And there's a deeper meaning to the actual ceremonies, which, once people get into it, then they start realizing that we as First Nations people of North America, we do have a responsibility to the Mother Earth. It isn't just healing for ourselves, that's the benefit also, but also there is an actual spiritual responsibility that we accept from our elders in order to continue and do these ceremonies. Once population knows that, and everybody can contribute to that. They don't have to be First Nation or just Cree. Like every person from every nationality around the world can contribute to these ceremonial processes that people do in different parts of the globe. And in North America, I'll say the plains areas that the Cree inhabit, we have that responsibility too. And if that's what the government was taking away. But there are enough people out there that still continue to do this, and we're just saying, okay, if people are asking us for help and healing from these organizations, we really want to get them involved. We want them to start participating in this type of spiritual healing behavior, and as part of their work. Eventually, you're going to have people that do this for a career, but there's still going to be a tradition in their community. But you have organizations that are employing them to have this type of skill set, to share this type of skill set. So that's, I guess that I would say that would be a question that I would definitely ask elders anywhere, if they would want to work with organizations and providing more ceremonial opportunities for their people, in addition to the ones that are ongoing right now. And the spiritual ways are protected by the the instructions that were given by the elders. There's only certain parts of that we could share, but we can certainly share information on how people can contribute and also receive the benefits of the ceremony. So that would be my invitation to everybody that starting to realize what had happened in the past. If we want to do things in a cultural and spiritual ceremonial way to help the survivors, we would have to ask government organizations and organizations to assist their Aboriginal service populations in that way. And then there's ways we can actually cost that out if people were really serious. If not, okay, we're just essentially talking about that and re-talking about it, but we actually have to do that because residential schools were real. Government did not just talk about them and in theory and say, okay, this is something that could happen. We should think of doing that. Let's have discussion. Let's have posters. And we're going to have residential schools. No, they didn't. They invested real dollars, built real buildings, employed real people to go out there and retrieve the children, employed real people to go out there and keep the children, and sadly abuse the children. And they did this. They did this for a century and a half. So that's the kind of effort that we should be willing to take on. So with that, I'll close my remarks off for now. It's certainly doable, and I want to thank your organization for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you.
I would really like to thank you. That was amazing. Thanks a lot, Larry, and giving us your time, Elder Larry. We really appreciate it. And from what I understood from your thing, that from your talk, was that it started off like people weren't interested in the legacy and following the traditions and the ceremonies, but now a sudden interest has happened, and also. First, they just denied everything, but now they are also accepting their mistakes, sort of trying to reconcile. So the best way to do is for us to, work on the kids and let everybody, like all the organization is saying we want to help, but the main way to help from your point of view is that get involved in the ceremonies and learn and let all the native people help them learn these ceremonies, like financially, physically help and go ourselves and learn it, so that it is a thing that is popular everywhere. So it's not just restricted to the native people. That's a very good solution, because we all, as organizations, we always want to help because we realize all the injustice that's happened, and in our religion, to help people, justice is very important in our religion, and to eradicate injustice is very important. And that's why we really want to help. But you have amazing ideas that we should get involved ourselves and go to these ceremonies and learn about it, so that we can really know what exactly, because as you were said, there is interest, but not enough. Like majority are not even learning, and there are no elders left to teach also, because they're all themselves are not united, because of the 4 and 5 generations that went through so much trauma through the residential school. It's like that whole generation is gone. So the teachers are very few, the learners are few too. But if we make it like a popular thing where everybody goes and learns, even if you're not native, then it will be a general thing, and it will be added to the school curriculum maybe, because that's how it should become. Because the schools took it away. Now the schools have to put it back in there.
Good.
Exactly what, that's what I understood from your talk.
Good. Yes. Yep. Good.
So thank you for, that's amazing ideas. And hopefully we will try to follow through and, try to send sisters who are willing to come and learn these, and be part of these ceremonies. And so we can understand, and you make it a popular thing to do. Because sometimes we want to help, but we don't know what to do. It's like, feel lost.
Good.
Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you for your talk. That was really amazing. Good solutions and good problem solvings that we learned today. Um, Thank you, Larry,
Yeah,
for giving
you're
us
welcome.
your time and your effort. May the Creator reward you. And I like the part about the Mother Earth. We are all, again, we are really the environment is suffering so much. We see how there's so many catastrophes happening all over the world because of the way we did. And if we want to fix the environment, we should learn from you. And
Yeah.
we all want to do it, like the whole world is suffering. So if we just come for that reason itself, for Mother Earth, then that in itself will be such a beneficial thing for everybody involved, right?
Good. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thanks a lot. I would like to introduce the second speaker. We have Elvin, sorry, just a minute. We have the Elder Elvin Francis, who is a member of also the Nekaneet First Nation from the Treaty 4 territory. And he has he attended the residential school. He's a survivor. And he attended the Kwa Appel Indian Residential School in Labret, Saskatchewan in 1979 and 1980. After that, he went into business management, and he has been educated into other different capabilities. And he's also went into First Nation politics, and he became a councillor and a chief of the Nekaneet First Nation community. Currently, his passion is to help his First Nation people, and he's also right now he's doing that, and he's a counselor, and he's helping out the First Nation. And we invited him today because we wanted to learn, his experience as a survivor of the residential school. And we all know about it now that finally, the government is talking about it and everybody is learning. And so many graves were discovered, which was so sad. And so we all want to know more about it because, being in Canada, we know this is our history. And even though it's not being taught in school, we just want to know. And especially from a survivor, that would be the best. So please, I would and thank you for giving us your time, Elvin, on such short notice. Because the other elder that we had invited suddenly was feeling under the weather and he couldn't attend. So just thank you. Thanks a lot for doing this for us. And the mic is all yours. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. As Larry has eloquently put it, that being a residential survivor is it hurts because we never understood why we went there. It was actually hard to understand why the church was doing this. My first experience on a Sunday, like we don't have a church here in on Niganit, and I never understood why. As a child, 13, 14 years old, going to a church and not understanding why I had to kneel. And I questioned the preacher at that time. I said, well, what are we doing? And they basically told me, you have to kneel for, I guess, the way he explained it, it kind of hurt me because I didn't understand why am I kneeling for something that I don't understand? I had to question that. Because that to me was they were not willing to understand why I did not go to church, of not having one on our First Nation. We are the only First Nation in Saskatchewan that does not have a church, and we've never attended church. And when he said, well, why don't you kneel? I don't understand what we're doing here. I don't know. I just told him, I don't know what's going on here. I was pulled out by the ears, told to stand in a corner and basically stand there. And then for that rest of that year, I was ostracized by the rest of the student population because I never understood church. And as a child at that time, why am I being treated this way? Of being pushed out by the rest of the students when I didn't understand church, the Christian way of life. I didn't know. But I eventually learned throughout my lifetime that I have to forgive them for not knowing who I am as a First Nations, culturally appropriate in our own ways of doing things, of praying to our Creator. And I always tried to make people understand who I was at that school, tried to explain to them why I don't kneel, because I don't understand why we do that. I never could understand that. But like I said, as I grew up a little more throughout my adult life, I too went into the deep depression of alcohol and drugs because of those initial feelings of being told there's something wrong with you if you've never attended church. I never did understand that. And like I said, but today I have I have to forgive them now. I have to forgive those who have basically told me I am not worthy of a human being because I never attended church. That to me is it still hurts today, but I have to forgive those that had done those things to me. There was many student against student violence because of those very reasons of me not understanding what the church was meant to change me at that time. But my experiences does not only continue from the residential school. I was actually shamed as a 5-year-old because when I went to school in the public school system, I only spoke my own language of Cree. And guess what? I was given a yardstick at that time, told to put up my hands till I was 8 years old to actually, through the public school system, speak English. And what does that do to a young person at 5 years old? It almost made me feel ashamed of who I was as being a Cree native person. That was a sad thing. And today, I still feel like something is still not right. A piece of me is still missing because I can hear the Cree words in my head, the lengthy, the ones that are in our prayer system, of the way we do our prayers. I still cannot say them, but I can hear them in my head, but they just don't want to come out the right way because of being traumatized by the public school system, of being told, speak English at a very young age. That still traumatizes me today. And I'm going to be darn near 60 years old now, and it's still in my head. That still bothers me. But again, I've learned how to forgive them and pray for them that hopefully they can forgive themselves for what they have done to condition us in this way to only speak English, which is very, very, very sad when it comes down to that. Because like I said, I still pray for them. I still want them to make sure that they can be better people every day because of the way we are actually taught by our elders to forgive people for what they have done and pray for them every morning and every night of what has been done to us as First Nations people, because they almost actually done that, because to kill the child in the Indian, they almost succeeded. But when I came back to my First Nation, realizing that I could actually speak Cree and understand Cree, then I started basically being proud of who I was, because I almost forgot that part. That was the sad part. I almost didn't realize that I was actually a Cree speaking person. So that's one of the things and today that still bothers me. But like I said, I pray every morning and every night. I smudge with sweetgrass, sage, and I pray for these people. What has happened? I have had many friends who have passed on, who were young people at the time, probably in their 30s and 40s, who have left today's world because of residential school. They were intimidated by the preachers, the nuns, to not be proud of who they were. And when they went back to their First Nation, they couldn't adapt to that. So they moved to the city and even got more lost in drugs and alcohol, and eventually passed on because they couldn't forgive those that had done something to them. And they found solace, I guess you would say, in actually doing the drugs and alcohol, because it made you forget that day, that night, the next day. So they found a way to actually try to forget it. But guess what? When they sobered up, it was there again. So what did they do? They actually went back to drugs and alcohol, and even harder drugs, more alcohol, which is never any good, because the body is not made for that. And as being a former leader here, I always tell our children, when I have a chance, when I used to speak to them, I would tell them, drugs and alcohol, those aren't ours. They weren't given to us. They were given to the colonists of this country. They brought it to us, and it almost destroyed us. But if you think about going back to the way we were initially brought up by our elders' teachings and ways, we've survived this long for centuries by basically re-indigenizing ourselves, of how we can actually be better people and feel worthy of our own ways of life. Those are the things that need to be taught again by the system. It needs to be said. And the hard truth is, they need to understand that what they've done is it's not just a sorry. It has to be brought at the forefront of being told to everybody, you need to support that again. It needs to be brought back to our own people, of re-indigenizing them. When it comes down to the language and the ceremonies, they are still there, but they needs to be supported. I'm just going to reiterate what Larry has said, my brother. It needs to be supported. Without that full support, we will continue to lose people to the system of where in these cities, these towns, they will still get lost if they're not supported in such a way to re-indigenize them. That is what is going on. And without that, we will continue to be lost, because we try our best to bring them back. We support by telling them, giving them tobacco and saying, please come to the ceremonies. Come and learn the songs. Come and learn the ways of our ancestors. But they're still lost in the system. And without that full support, they can't actually grasp what is actually within us as Indigenous people, of who we actually are. And they would be very proud of themselves once they knew who they really are. That's the big part here, is to support that system in itself, because you can't do it as one person. You can go around tell people, but they still need that support to actually bring them to the ceremonies. Brother Larry and I, we try to tell as many people as we can, come to these ceremonies. And sometimes we have a cab full of people, with 3 or 4 people, but we don't have vans, buses that we can actually bring the people to come and learn these. We always need the support to make sure that we can actually do these, because that century and a half of being hurt is still there with the many generations that is carried on. And they need to know they can be proud once they come back to them. The system is built against us. The colonization of this country has it's detrimental to our people when it comes down to our culture and our language, because of we must speak English, which is a universal language. I can accept that. But when it comes down to our culture, we got to learn to speak the language. Without that support, without that being there on an everyday basis like everything else, we can only do so much ourselves to bring them back to our ceremonies. That's the important part here. These residential schools have hurt so many generationally that it's going to take another generation. It's going to take another 100 years maybe to fully be supported by every Indigenous person out there. It might take that long, but for sure, another 2 generations, 3 generations, because you can catch them while they're young today. But that's the young generation. What about their parents? What about their grandparents? They are still lost. But we'll do our best to bring that next generation up then, to make sure that they're fully supported, to make sure they understand that these ceremonies are still there. And how do we do it? With support, financial support. I do as best as I can when I go to get a time to speak to organizations, the provincial government, the rural government, the RMs, the provincial government, the federal government. But they don't understand that what they have done, the saying of sorry, is just not enough. It is now to be fully supported so that we can actually re-indigenize them to who they can be, to be a strong First Nations person. That's what needs to be done. And without that support, because we will flounder a bit when it comes down to that. We can only do so much ourselves personally. I myself, like I said, I've got children. They too have to live in the cities. They have to go and get an education, get to make sure they can support themselves in today's economy. Because on First Nations, there's just not enough of that. I'm doing my best as my personal best to try and make sure that we can have jobs on our First Nations. But we have to realize that private industry, crown corporations must actually support that also by bringing it to the First Nations. And how do we do it? We can only do that by continually talking with each other and fully supporting each other in such a way that's just not words. It's actually real action. That's what we must do today. So thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Thanks a lot, Edmund. It seems like I was out of words. It's so heartbreaking to hear all the stuff that you have gone through. Like, it's almost like bringing tears in our eyes. And it's right. The solution is that, just by words doesn't really matter. Just a bunch of words. Like when you are sorry and you say you want forgiveness, but you have to show it in action. And we don't see any action. We just see just bunch of words from everybody. The process is going to take, because it took so long, 3 and 4 generations of abuse and hundreds of years of abuse. Now we'll need hundreds of years of fixing it up, but still it hasn't started. It doesn't seem, it's just a bunch of words. And hopefully it will, this whole system will start supporting you And you're right. We have to support this re-indigenous of you, just like they took it away from you. Now they have to give it back to you. And yeah, the main thing it seems you said was like financial help too, and also help from. I mean, the kids are trying, but there's no way to do it because nobody's really supporting this whole system. That first the trauma was done. Now healing wasn't helped. Now you're trying to heal, but there's no support in that. And then now the kids who didn't go through this trauma are not being able to be indigenous or be native because, you know, the parents are not there to teach them. So this is a whole vicious cycle that it has kind of stopped, but still there's a lot of fixing has to be done in it for it to work. So yeah, it is kind of a sad situation, and it'll take a lot of efforts from a lot of people, and we all have to join forces to help you guys, you know, help everybody, because when you benefit and what the knowledge you guys have and how you lived before, we have to learn so much from it. And Canada itself as a country will benefit so much if it supports its indigenous people. You know, it's such a sad situation that they came and just were there to eradicate everybody and just take over. If they had just joined forces, it would have been so much of a better, happier place and happier for everybody. Like, you know, just like if you don't stand up for injustice, then the injustice will happen to you one day. So if we don't stand up even now, that it's been hundreds of years of it, then when are we going to wake up? When are we going to fix this situation that is so sad? And just like brother Elder Elvin said, that, you know, you can understand, like we think the church is related to the God. You go to that places for security, for safety, but the place itself was traumatizing you, which is such a sad concept that if you think of these are the people of God, you would think the best of them. And how can you worship the God they worship if they are not being very secure or very helpful or very nice to you? Like, how can that work out? So we totally understand, and we have been colonized, like most of us ICNA sisters are from the Asian countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and, you know, other places like that. And then we were colonized too. So we know exactly what we were told to speak English too. Like my parents went through it. That I remember that, you know, she didn't want to teach us our national language because to her it was shameful to talk like that. So we sort of understand. I mean, nobody can really know the trauma that each person goes through, but we sort of understand what you've gone through. So thank you for sharing your story. And now we would like to have some questions from the audience. And if you both of would like to please answer it, that would be really helpful. Some of the questions are, so what is the significance of the Orange Day? Like, we celebrated it today. Many of the ICNA sisters went out, and we actually went out and did a march, and we also collected money by selling Orange Day. And I personally noticed that many people don't know about it. Nothing, like no one is aware of it. It's so sad that, but I mean, ICNA sisters are very passionate about it. So many of our cities went out, and we haven't just done it this year. We've done it for a couple of years now, and we are very passionate about it. And we went out and explained it to people, and they were all saying, so you are natives? I go, no, we are not. But, you know, we are supporting the natives just like you should. We are Canadians. We belong, you know, to Canada, and whatever the Canadian history is part of us now. So we tried to do our best. So if you guys know the significance of the Orange Day, if some of the people, we have like 90 people listening to this webinar, if you can just give us in a short version of it, what is the significance of the Orange Day for the Indigenous people? Brother Elvin, or Brother Larry, Larry, Brother Larry.
Okay, I would say it's a girl that wore a beautiful orange shirt to residential school, and it was taken away. And being mindful that her grandmother raised her, and however she was able to find the money to purchase that at a Robinson store, the young girl was very proud of that, but it got taken away right away. And then the insignificance that she felt and the hurt, and you, the part where we have to add on is that we have to multiply that by 150,000, because every one of those children must have felt something like that many times over. And we have to commend the bravery of someone like Phyllis to actually say it and organize her thoughts around that and how she felt. And to commend the population of the country of Canada for supporting that and making it a national day to recognize her efforts to speak out. And but that's where the work lies. Okay, let's get to work and let's think of that kind of number, because even if one child went through that kind of experience, that's criminal enough. And it was done to, like the numbers say, 150,000. That's a big population. That's a big number. So that's the work that we have ahead of us. And I want to thank Phyllis for sharing her story, and also my brother Alvin for sharing his, something that was taken away, confusion. So to me, that's what that orange shirt is about. Is yeah, let's not just stop there at the orange shirt. There's 130 residential schools across Canada over the years. You know, we haven't even built one healing lodge that's geared towards residential school survivors. That's how far. That's how far away we are from trying to at least match the effort to take away that culture.
That's
Thank
so
you.
true. So sad that, yeah, we are very far from the healing to start, and, to build places where people can go to be healed. Because everybody is traumatized, but there's no place to go and fix themselves or heal themselves. And you're willing to offer, but then there's so many. It's like thousands and thousands of kids were traumatized, and in different ages and in different times. So yeah, it will take a really long time. So thank you for sharing that. So we learned how to help you. Is there any other way that you can think of ways of helping you guys, like the indigenous people? Like you and Larry and Elvin, brother, Larry and elder Elvin shared a lot of solutions. But we're trying to raise awareness. We're trying to financially help. We will try to go and attend your ceremonies. We'll make a group of sisters who will go from maybe every city and attend some ceremonies to learn about it, and to maybe we can even ask the government, like when you have a march or something where you're asking the government to change their policies, we'll be there for you. Anything else that you want us, please let us know right now, that how can we help the indigenous people celebrate their culture? Any other way we can help you with? Maybe Elvin can.
Elvin, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
You muted. Well, can you hear me? I'll just say that I guess the scale of difference in terms of what the residential schools provided, what the young children experienced, or they experienced sexual abuse, and that's far, and they even experienced death. There was, when you find those, when the stories are coming out now. On the other end of that scale is if those residential schools had taught the children about, making a living, making a good living, how to work with kindness with other members of your society, and the other one being, how do you build wealth? What do you do with your money? How does it work when you save money? How does that work when other people save money and they pool their money? Now you're building wealth. How are you going to be an economic factor in the country? If the residential schools had taught that, okay, now they were doing something.
Mhm.
But the First Nations people, they were limited. I don't know who ever was making those decisions on what was applied there. And you can't tell me that they didn't know. That's the other criminal part of the whole residential school. All this stuff is just finally coming out, and it's been kept hidden for 100 years, 150 years. That part is hard to believe. But like I say, okay, let's really start doing that stuff for our young people. Let's start telling them, okay, here's how you prosper in society. Here's how you're successful in society. Let's get away from that plateau where we're just surviving. That's not how this country is supposed to be provided for the First Nations people, the people of the land. And we thank and welcome all we call them our neighbors that come and live with us in this country. That, yeah, we want to be a factor at that level also. And so with everybody's help, definitely the ones that need healing, they do need cultural practices all around them, but we need people to provide that is the main message. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And that is the main message we got. There's another question that was asked by one of the attendees. What is National Indigenous Day? Why is it important? National Indigenous Day.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Okay, no, thank you very much. To me, National Indigenous Day is to put us at the forefront of who the original peoples are here in Canada. As we call it, it's not just Canada. It's across what we consider the medicine line, which is the US. Because we consider this, we call it Turtle Island, which is basically North America as a whole. It has to be taught at every school, right through university, colleges, trade schools, to show the appreciation of what we did as signing treaties to share this land. Because when it comes down to economic prosperity, we are very limited when it comes down to economic prosperity. The government fights us when it comes down to actually putting in proposals to basically be role models for these young ones who feel lost when they see somebody drive by in a brand new car. They don't understand how that is achieved by going to school and then getting a job to be prosperous. Every individual family has a different way of looking at things. And if we can basically change the view of how the negative view of what capitalism is, we need to show private corporations what they have done and what they have hindered upon the First Nations people of hiding their, I guess, our resources from us and sharing what they call the shareholders. Share that with us also, the nearest First Nation. It's just not about giving $20,000-$30,000 a year. When it comes down to a big reserve who have thousands of people, what's a dollar going to do or $2 going to do to change their lives? It's going to do nothing. It needs to be shared as a local First Nation within a project. They must be given rights to actually become a shareholder in these natural resources that we share, so they can actually prosper themselves by getting educated and participating and belonging in these private corporations, the crown corporations of Saskatchewan. We need a certain percentage of our own people there because there's just a small percentage. We need a higher percentage of what needs to be shared and shown how to prosper within Canada. capitalism is still not fully understood by First Nations people. They don't really understand it. They just think, oh, I'll get a job, I'll get money, make my money. That's not what it is. They must be shown how to actually be a shareholder in a company so they can prosper through the generations
Where's
of
Mike?
shareholding. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. That's so true. We need to, yeah, it's a lot of big changes that need to come. Hopefully with time, we will inshallah do it. Our creator will help us. There's another question, which is a nice one, was, is there any reputable organization that we can contribute our donations to? Like, we don't know, like, which are reputable, which are not. If you could list a few, if you know any that we can send our donations to.
Well, there's no organization doing what we just spoke about.
Yeah,
There's not a people
unfortunately.
that provide for hunger and for assistance in receiving health care, whether it's mental or emotional. That's all good stuff, but to actually do it on a wholesale basis of providing cultural practices for the general population of First Nations people that need help. There's nobody really doing that on that basis that says, okay, we can look after 100 people, but so we need to. Problem is, we need to look after 1,000. That kind of stuff that work with those kind of numbers. Yeah. So, and that's what organizations need to do. They need to hire these kind of people that deliver those kind of services, like I say, and then put the resources behind them. So I would say whoever you think has the best pamphlet that describes that, or tries to, but like I said, I don't know of any real organizations that are doing it on a continuous, big number basis. They're certainly doing a lot of good by making elders accessible and available for help, but those elders actually need access to ceremonial resources.
Sure.
In order that they can look after their network of helpers. It isn't just the one person doing that. So that's what needs to be built. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, it's a lot of big, really big organization, and you need big changes. Just a little bit, but we will start. Little bit always helps.
Yeah.
Instead of nothing, at least a little bit will help. So we are trying to support we are supporting the Orange Shirt organization of all the donations that we collected today, because all the marches, and so we are supporting them. Hopefully, hopefully everything will work out slowly, and everybody will be organized, and the big changes will happen. Yeah, it seems like whatever we try, it's only a drop in the ocean, but at least we shouldn't stop trying. Even a drop in the ocean is better than nothing. So that's what we believe in, and that's why we are trying our best to do it. There's another question. How might our community ensure that all children can feel secure in their identity and a sense of belonging? Like, our children sometimes feel lost too, because of Islamophobia and all that's happening with our kids. If we could, join forces and help our kids feel part of the society instead of feeling excluded, just like you've been suffering for years, hundreds of years through that, and still are. So is there any solutions that you have in mind that could help?
Well, I think what Alvin was talking about is when he realized that he still had his language, all of a sudden he started feeling a sense of pride that he does have something that's valuable that unfortunately other people don't have, and he started to realize there's specific identity to that. That's the advantageous situation that Alvin was in. He had people around him that spoke the language, so he was able to learn, and they also went to ceremonies. So that's kind of overall. If there's, I would say that if people have elders or parents talking to them about their history, the history of the tribe or the nationality of people that they're that they're born into, and any sort of ceremonial responsibilities or understandings that can be shared with them, and talk as much as you can in the language that you're given. Enrich that child with that information. They'll go out and make a living, but they'll also do their part to ensure that that is continued to other children or other generations.
That's true. Language is a very big, yeah, many of our elders say the same thing, that, we should teach our kids our language, because language is if you don't teach it, then they disappear.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess
no,
I can make a comment on that.
sure.
What I've learned through my entire life is like my example is of my children is to invite those that don't understand you to befriend them, invite them into your living room, invite them to understand who each other is, because when my children went to school, like they would invite their friends to the reserve, and they would come and hang out at the house here, and these children, these kids, teenagers would ask us questions because they actually feared us, because nobody ever invited them to come in to their homes. And that's what I ended up finding out, was some of these children's parents told them, no, don't you dare go to the reserve, you're going to get hurt. But these children turned into adults, found out we are just kind, generous people who are willing to share what we have with them. That was the lesson that I had learned. And when I was a child, guess what? They invited me, they're adults now. Guess what? They still talk about that when I went to their house and showed them who I was as a person who is loving, caring, and generous, and telling them my stories, is to invite them and go and just get to know each other a little bit better, an open house, to just go out to the general public and invite them one at a time, because you can only change their world and one person at a time by inviting them to personally get to know who you are. That's my experience. So thank you.
That's amazing advice. Yeah, that's so true. And it is one of the things that we as Igna sisters do that too. That, in Ramadan, when we have our fasting and stuff, and people are like, if you don't understand, ignorance sometimes builds hate. So to make them understand, we invite them into our homes to see how we fast, how we pray, how we eat together, and why we cover our head and stuff. So it really opens up their eyes. And yeah, we should do that with our kids around, so they know that, we are actually the same. We are all humans. We all have the same issues. We all have the same problems. We all like the same shows. We are the same, but we just think just because we look or act different, or we have different ceremonies, doesn't make us be different as humans. So yeah, that was amazing advice, Elder Larry and Elder Alvin. That makes so much sense, that to make our children feel secure, we should let them have friends over and let them see our culture, and then, and our religion, that, we are not very different from them. A very good advice.
Good.
I totally agree with that. So any other comments anybody wants to? We should be ending the webinar soon. Thank you for your time. We learned a lot with the two talks that you guys gave, and we are really thankful for you to come and spend so much time. The problem seems from your talk that it's like such a big problem. It's a very immense problem, and hundreds of years of abuse. It's not going to be easy to just get rid of it, maybe within our lives. But hopefully for our children, we'll leave behind a better world, and more understanding world, more united, and not only good for each other, but good for the Mother Earth itself too. And, hopefully that we can do for our next generations that are coming up. we've messed up, as we can see, people have messed up around us, totally traumatized, and left a lot of scars which are very hard to wash off, and it won't be easy. But just like I said, a drop in ocean is better than no drops. So hopefully we've all learned today by being together and trying to support each other. And now we believe that once you're united, we can stand up and once united, nobody can make us fall. So hopefully this will unite us in our pain, in our own I mean, we can never understand each other's pain, but at least we can try to be helpful towards it, listen to you. That should, even listening to people who have, it reduces the pain itself, and you listen to somebody who can share the pain at least. So hopefully this was helpful to all of you, and all of you that attended learned something new, and we'll go home and, we'll, if nothing else, we can do pray for each other that, may our Creator guide us to the right way to help each other. So thank you for coming, and thank you for everyone who came into the webinar to listen to our lecture today, and joined us for this eye-opener. Hopefully we all learned so much. I learned a lot. And hopefully we will be able to solve each other's problem and be united in pain and united in solving it too. Inshallah, which means if God wills.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.